Hello, and a warm welcome to all of you and to this session about immersive research virtually anywhere. I'm so excited about joining this session yet again with MRMW. I have been heading up this group called Ericcson Consumer Lab for the past 15 years, based out of Stockholm in Sweden, and largely responsible for trying to bring in the voice of the consumer into the organization. So we'll be talking a lot about immersive technologies and the impact of that on the way we will possibly do research in the future, but also what are the trends that are impacting the market research industry, and how we actually see some of these trends manifesting from an Ericsson's perspective. But before we go further, let me try and talk about what are some of the important areas that we tend to investigate from a consumer lab perspective. So a little bit about Consumer Lab first. We've been doing consumer research since 1995. And we've been, we take immense pride in the fact that we have one of the most massive analytical platform with years and years of consumer data available with us. Every year we go out and we interview about 2.6 million respondents, representing views of about 1.1 billion people in about 50 countries or so, with a combination of a lot of new groundbreaking methodologies, but also our traditional approach of quantitative as well as qualitative research. What is interesting also is that a lot of research at Ericcson Consumer Lab is available in the public domain. So we are considered one of the most important assets by Ericcson to drive thought leadership in the area of how ICT is manifesting, and what are the behaviors that we need to essentially keep track of. So as we go into the session, I think it's important to set the context here about immersive technology. What are those immersive technologies that we're going to be talking about? So I put together this slide talking about this umbrella term called extended reality. So what is this extended reality? Well, it's a term which encompasses a lot of different technologies like augmented reality, which is about superimposing, real world digital objects in a virtual environment, whereas virtual reality, which is completely immersing yourself in a virtual environment using headsets like the Oculus Quest 2, which has created a lot of hype in the market. And then a convergence of both augmented reality and virtual reality is what we call mixed reality, where you can pick and choose the sort of experience that you want to have. Now, there are a lot of different technologies that are having an impact on these immersive technologies like AR and VR. And one area where Ericsson has been very active is this area around 5G, which is the next generation of wireless technology. We have seen every 10 years, we have a new wireless technology in place, and now we are in the 5G era. 5G promises massive speeds, capacity, low responsiveness in terms of latency, which offers great gaming experiences if you're a gamer, and a host of different types of support for different types of sensors and devices that would be available. So 5G is going to be very essential and does have an impact on both augmented reality as well as virtual reality experiences. And then there are, of course, other technologies like cloud computing, which is really going beyond the limitations of the device itself, moving the computing into the cloud. And which is again going to have a lot of impact into making these virtual reality headsets much lighter going forward, if we are able to move a lot of the computing capacity into the cloud. Now, there are a lot of new form factors and devices that are coming in, and we are trying to look at what those future form factors might actually look like. There is a lot to talk about Apple releasing their augmented reality glasses in the next few years. But this is again going to be an important inflection point, looking at what could happen beyond the smartphones. And then the impact of what the developer community creates, which is rich content and media, whether that is gaming or social virtual reality or other productivity and utility applications that could be there, that one can enjoy both from an augmented reality and virtual reality sort of part. I forgot to mention Pokemon Go, which is a great example of a typical augmented reality experience. If you're not very familiar of that, but from a bare basic perspective, I think augmented reality has now evolved a lot from Pokemon Go into getting into areas beyond gaming, like education, productivity, training, and simulation, and even collaboration. So at Ericsson, we have been very active in the area of augmented reality, and and also virtual reality, and we have done a lot of research in this area. So I would like to take you back into 2018, where we first utilized virtual reality as one of the research tools in the market research toolbox. And there we had collaborated with a Denmark-based applied neuroscience agency called Neurons Inc. With the ambition that we wanted to understand what is the impact of deteriorated network performance on gamers. And what we wanted to check was whether deteriorated or the deterioration in the quality of the network performance, whether it's fiber in the home or playing gaming on 4G, is going to be impacting not just gaming on devices like the PC or the desktop, but also what gaming in virtual reality. So we collaborated with Neurons Inc. and we had some participants in Spain. We also worked very closely with Vodafone Spain in this regard. And it was interesting that we asked consumers to go ahead and first play a game on a PC platform, and we were constantly deteriorating network performance to understand the psychological impact of that. And similarly, also on the virtual reality platform as well, in order to understand the changes that we see. And it was interesting that we figured out that the network lags in virtual reality were actually 3 times more disturbing and stressful for the consumers as compared to the PC platform. So metaphorically speaking, this is as if I was asking you to do a task of juggling the balls and also asking you questions and wanting responses from you. So such a multitasking approach would really actually exhaust your brain to a point that you necessarily can't keep up. So that's the stress that we saw in the gamers. What was also interesting is that the cognitive capacity of the gamers was also diminished because of the sort of deterioration in network performance that we saw, and it felt as if the deterioration in cognitive capacity felt as if we had added about 5 to 10 years more in the age of these young gamers. So clearly we were able to establish a correlation between poor network performance, the need for 5G in order to improve this network performance, and what can happen from a psychological perspective to these gamers if the network didn't really keep up with the demands. Now, we did a lot of this research, and it's great research, and it's available out there, probably groundbreaking from a market research perspective by using these new tools. But it's very important to translate this research also into concepts and prototypes for other non-technical audiences to understand what are those sort of key messages that we want to relay. So in order to do that, we have taken now market research out of the lab, out of the desk, into trade shows such as the Mobile World Congress, which is by far one of the biggest telecom industry trade shows. And here you see we actually created a live demo where the attendees could come in. They would be made to play a virtual reality first-person shooting game, and while they're doing that, we will simulate a deteriorated sort of a network performance scenario and give them a live measurement of their own brain readings and the psychological impact that they could see, how the changes in the network performance or the network quality actually impacted their gameplay, and how their brain reacted to certain points and certain events in the game. And this was really very, very interesting for our audiences that come into the trade show, because now there was a direct correlation that they can establish between the need for 5G, better resilient networks, reliable networks, and gaming, in the future, which is now going to extend more from a smartphone-centric gameplay to maybe a virtual reality gameplay. So these are all areas that now I think for the past 2 years, Consumer Lab has been very active. We are moving, from just doing great market research to actually translating that research into very compelling prototypes and concepts that can then envision a bit of this immersive future. Now, Also, back in 2018, we were the first ones to actually take the step into ethnography in virtual reality. We did the first qualitative focus groups in virtual reality, utilizing free meeting rooms from spaces like Old Space VR or Rec Room. These were environments where we could invite consumers to come in and brainstorm together with them on important areas. So here you see an example of that, where we had the virtual moderator, the avatars of all the consumers that were logging in from all over the group. So even back then in 2018, we had already experimented with going with research beyond boundaries. And now we feel with the pandemic, this is perhaps much more relevant, that we can't really gather consumers in a closed in a closed indoor environment. So the virtual reality then becomes a great alternative to do some pandemic proof research. So you see there are a lot of innovations that we have driven in the area of immersive research, but I think one area, one technology where we are much more bullish in comparison to virtual reality is augmented reality. So I want you to imagine a scenario where you are walking down a street. We did have 5G networks available. You just took up your phone and you want to figure out, nearest landmarks, or possibly get some navigational assistance, figure out what is available on the street, from shopping to restaurants. Augmented reality, with its great environmental understanding and spatial observation, can offer you all this from your smartphone itself. And here you see an example of that, where you are able to get information on the nearest coffee shop, the shopping center, or at least a fashion store itself. But augmented reality also gives us the ability to actually poll consumers in context when they are experiencing augmented reality. So here is an example of that, where we are asking a consumer to take a survey and unlock a discount, which, since we know the location of the user, and we can understand this from a contextual basis. Now, this is all opt-in, very similar to the panel engagements that we have. So there is an opt-in panel, which is then experiencing some of these AR experiences that have been created, because we do want to, try to ensure that all privacy guidelines are considered. So this is most likely going to be an opt-in experience. Now, this is again a conceptual idea of how we envision augmented reality to help us do contextual research in real time. Is this really going to happen? I think it will happen based on what we see happening across the globe. Here is an example of what we see happening in Hong Kong with a mobile operator called CSL, who has launched 5G. And what they're offering is the ability for the consumers to unlock a lot of different shopping offers that with partners that they have tied up with, while using their smartphones and navigating across the streets of Hong Kong. Consumers will be able to see these 3D models of augmented reality objects that they can unlock in order to get different discounts and so forth. Now, we can easily use this platform in order to glean insights, poll consumers to try and understand, how contextually, not just how they're experiencing this augmented reality experience, but since, as I said, we know the context, whether they are close to a mall, whether they are possibly close to a grocery store, there is a lot of information and insights that we can glean in the moment using augmented reality as one of the research tools. So I see this will possibly happen, and we already see momentum in this direction. Now, immersive technology for market research is not new. I think there have been a lot of developments in this area, largely in the retail domain, whether it's simulating the shelf in a retail environment, trying to understand the retail behavior of consumers. But we also see that you could marry this with more implicit research approaches, such as neuroscience, to really understand the non-conscious drivers of behavior as well. So a combination of VR and neuroscience is a great combination to go with. But as I said, we expect augmented reality to have a much bigger impact than virtual reality, because of the friction involved with investing and buying in new devices. Augmented reality is something that is readily available in terms of installed base on the smartphones. So we see AR being used and integrated in your traditional research in order to drive increased panel engagement, do product testing and validation testing by creating a digital twin or a 3D model of the product or a concept that you essentially want to test. And this is a much more richer experience than just polling consumers and asking them about their views on a concept that just exists on paper. So I think this is going to be important, but also that we feel that with collaborative, shared, multi-user augmented reality experiences, we can have multiple users collaborate on a particular product concept or test, iterating it together, changing things together, leaving their feedback and reviews in augmented reality. So this could also be a shared augmented reality experience that we could have. Now, going forward, immersive tech can be used in a lot of different areas. How about customer journey mapping, where we want to understand the navigational decision making that somebody is taking in a retail store, but also in an airport, in a banking location, in a financial institution. Virtual reality simulations can really help us understand. And then we've already talked about social VR as a way in order to do pandemic proof qualitative research, now that we are in a situation where it's really extremely difficult for us to gather people in the same room and start doing qualitative research. So we'll have to see how the pandemic really unfolds itself, but these are challenging times, and that also means that we would have to rethink a bit of our own approaches as far as qualitative market research is concerned. So immersive tech, a lot of different avenues available, a lot of different application areas that are available. It's of course up to the brands now, as well as for the research suppliers, to think about how to execute on some of these research approaches. Now, we talked about devices, and I think it's an important point, especially as it relates to both VR as well as augmented reality. If you look back 2 years, when we first did our virtual reality research, we figured out that consumers were not willing to spend more than 20 minutes in virtual reality, because you get this fatigue. You have a headset on your head, which is weighing more than a kg. And consumers didn't want to go through that sort of stressful experience. The headset also were quite expensive, so we were looking at 2,000 to 3,000 US dollars worth of headsets. Now, with the technology leaps that have happened, especially with the coming of 5G and cloud computing, the devices are becoming much smaller. So here you see on the screen now, we are talking about, and we're already seeing the rise of these first generation of AR glasses. A great example of that is this company called Nreal, which has these lightweight glasses that just weigh about 88 grams and cost 300 US dollars, and they are already being sold in the consumer market in South Korea. Going forward, we do expect Apple to launch their own version of augmented reality glasses, in 2022, 2023, and then that begs a question. What's going to happen with the way that we've been thinking about market research, because we've been designing market research for the mobile platform. Now going forward, if in the next 2 years, we're already starting to see Apple and other device manufacturers already moving in these, what I call the third screen experiences, we need to possibly start thinking about how we're going to do market research in this era. And with that intent, again, Ericcson is stepping in order to really understand how would a survey experience essentially look like on these augmented reality glasses. And that's where we will now work with some sort of startups as such. Here is an example of that, where we are cooperating with a startup based in Germany called iCandy Lab. And what they're doing is basically they are an app development company designing augmented reality experiences for shopping. And they are already working with a lot of home shopping channels. So you could just pick up your phone, point it towards the live video, and you will be able to get these 3D realistic rendered models of the object that you're actually seeing on your TV screen. And here, what we're trying to do now is, with the glasses, augmented reality glasses being available, with the technology being available, we will be moving away from just doing research on the mobile, using mobile as a platform, to doing research on the augmented reality glasses. So we want to understand how would the user interaction work? How would the user experience work? And I think this is a great example where we can use the glasses because we are expecting the consumers to transact and figure out and experience this sort of seamless and rich augmented reality 3D models of the products that they would like to buy in a store. So this is going to be really exciting, and we will come out with insights and results about what we have learned on this particular proof of concept, maybe in the mid of 2021. So stay tuned when Ericcson will come out with more research in this area. But this is where we see the future essentially heading, which is XR, glasses, and of course the mobile is still going to be there. The mobile is the computing platform, but then we will start to see these glasses then essentially being the complementary screen, or also maybe the screen for a lot of consumers. So your smartphone might stay in the pocket when you will have these glasses on, and that just changes the dimension on engagement going forward. Now, a lot of that also means that there will be a lot of challenges that would come in such an area. So imagine if you were wearing these glasses and you encountered such a scenario where you start getting these notifications, or some malicious app actually took over your glasses, or somebody hacks your glasses and so forth, and suddenly you start seeing these notifications, or your reality actually is then governed by a hacker which is hacked these devices as such. So this is a very scary sort of a scenario. Not to say this won't happen, this can happen, and that also raises a lot of concerns about what that future would entail, and how would we manage that, because that is going to create a lot of ethical and privacy issues. I think back in 2018, when we first did our virtual reality qualitative group, our moderator had to face harassment and trolling in a virtual environment. Of course, things have changed now. There is much better grip in terms of controlling your social virtual reality experience. You can control who's getting into these virtual rooms and so forth. So that's where we see that this is going to be really important, and the harassment and the liability parts need to then be looked at very, very seriously. Now, going forward, I think we will see a future where we will have the Internet of Senses. And what do you really mean by the Internet of Senses in 2030, right? So today we are largely interacting with sight and sound, but consumers expect that we will be digitalizing all our senses, including touch, taste, smell, by 2030. So imagine if we just left behind the screens, and you could basically just touch the bag that you wanted to buy, and you could look at the texture of that bag with haptic feedback. You might have the ability to share smells or taste of the dishes that you have just experienced out there. All of this might look like pretty radical from a sense of what is possible with the technology. But let me start by giving you a bit of this experience of what that future might essentially look like. And let me play a small video, and then we will come back and reflect on that video. know, the future starts with 5G, and you saw what could be possible with the Internet of Senses. And this is something that we are predicting possibly is going to be kicking off from 2030 onwards, where there will be technologies which will be available in order for us to transfer a multi-sensory experience over the Internet. And if you thought that this was just way too radical and this is never going to happen, well, let me tell you that the future is not too far away. We already see some sort of exciting application developers and hardware developers working in this area. What you see on the screen is this device which is called Eon from a company called OVR, which attaches to your virtual reality headset. And it's a wearable scent device for fragrances. And what it does is basically releases fragrances aligned with the virtual reality experience that you're having. So imagine walking into a forest and you can actually smell the fresh, fragrance of walking into the forest or in a garden. But also this might actually enhance the whole gaming experience as well. And talking about gaming, well, what if you had a full body suit that can actually give you a full immersion in terms of both haptic feedback, thermal feedback, so you could actually go ahead and experience a gaming experience that you or an immersion that you've never seen before. This is a company called Tesla Suit. No, this has nothing to do with Elon Musk, but this company is doing exciting things with producing these full body haptic suits, which can then be integrated with the virtual reality environments in order to offer you full immersion. Now, in such a scenario, with Internet of Senses 2030, I know we are not thinking that far out in terms of a market research industry. Maybe we have a timeline of the next 5 years, but really, I mean, we need to start preparing for that sort of a future to think at what would be the best ways possible for us to engage with consumers in such an environment where consumers will be able to get these multi-sensory experiences. What would product testing look like and at that point of time? And I think a lot of technology coming in is going to ease our lives as market researchers, because we can get from just plain simple 2D paper descriptions of concepts that we were talking about to actually real immersion within that concept itself. So leaving you with these thought-provoking stuff about the Internet of Senses and how that future will look like. Our journey actually continues in order to explore what's existing out there. There is always somebody out there building something new, and we are keeping a watch on that, tracking this. But also for those of you who are on the research supplier side, if you're working with augmented reality and virtual reality as tools, we would love to engage with you and take that conversation with you to understand what we can possibly do together in this area. And for those of you from the brand side, I think this future is inevitable. This future is going to be there. We have seen a transition from doing telephonic research to desktop to mobile. Now we would have to essentially think about the glasses, and that future is still not very far off, as we have seen through the presentation out here. So looking to hear a lot of your feedback and reflections and inputs, and happy to take any questions that you might have. Thank you so much. See you around and take care.